I don't know how everybody's memories are, but we hope that this kind of evening will inspire some audience participation as well. And before I introduce our three guests, I just have a little business to tend to. The next program coming up is going to be here on August 13th, on a Thursday evening as well at 7:30. And Luke Taldo will be speaking on crimes in during colonial times. So he promises us that this is George Souza, James Souza, and Mr. Gordon West. Where, oh, he thought he was going to hide back here.
Your name's spelled with an S or a Z?
Z.
He's lying too. You always have the Souzas. There's a lot of Souzas that are spelled with S, and there's a lot of Souzas with Z. I will give you a little bit of information on that. I checked my father's birth certificate, which I have. He was born in Portugal, which is Higgins, St. Miguel. And the spelling is S. He was in the military service, and his spelling was S. But when they came to this country, they said it Souza with a Z-A. That's how they got the Z in. All I can think of. But we have, in my family, we have S's and then we have Z's. But I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to change it this time in my life.
My father spelled his name with a Z. My mother spelled her name with an S. Dr. Jim Higgins, some of you might remember Dr. Don. This was his father, who lived in that beautiful big old red house. Now I don't know what color it is, but it's down near the Mills pond there. And it's a bed and breakfast, and they have a huge tent out there. Well, that's where Dr. Jim Higgins lived. And the first time he ever came to visit that I can remember, he came in on a motorcycle. Before that, he had a horse. But anyway, he delivered on Shell Lake here in the house that is now owned by Arthur Dexter. At that time, I don't know who owned it, but possibly one of the, well, doesn't matter. Anyway, my birth certificate said S-O-U-S-A because Dr. Higgins thought that I was a Souza. But my school records, my Army records was all spelled with a Z. So never had any trouble, really. Except when I wanted to retire back in '83, the personnel director said, Jim, you better go down to the Social Security office, get your papers cleared so that by the time you retire, your checks will start coming in. So I go down there, I get this guy, he must have just been out of the school. Well, you need this. And one of them was a birth certificate. So I go booming over to Our Lady of Assumption Church. Am I taking up?
No. That's what we're here for.
Our Lady of Assumption Church, because I know that I had my first communion there, confirmation, married, and I don't know where I'm going to be buried, but that's beyond it. So I go over there, and the priest says, 1921, what was the date again? May 28th. We have no births. And you know, he comes out with the birth certificates in shoeboxes in 1921, 1923, 1924. Well, this was, no, it was a little later than that, because this was only '83. So he said, when were you born? I said, 21. Oh, he said, you got to go to Hyannis because this church was a mission of Hyannis, St. Francis. So I go booming over there, and the housekeeper met me at the door, and she opened the book to May 28, 1921. There's one name in there. And I did recognize Maria and said, well, my mother's name was Mary, and Maria is Portuguese, Latin, French. But good Adam, that didn't register at all. I said, no. So I go back to, this is taking over a 2-week period, okay, because I'm working. And I'd sneak out a few minutes, and I go back to hospital 3 times. I drove that post crazy. And we went through not only 1921, but 23 and 22 and 20. So finally, I gave up, and I said, well, I'll have to fake it somehow. Maybe I can sweet talk him into letting me have my pension anyway. You know, it wasn't that much. But I'm driving back to the office, and you know, I don't know how many of you believe in guardian angels or, you know, but all of a sudden I could hear my grandmother referring to my father. Now this would be a mother-in-law talking about a son-in-law, so I'll only mention the name. I won't mention what you were saying. And she referred to it as Cuidado, and I'm not getting the pronunciation right because I've lost the accent, so I can't speak Portuguese. I turn around and put back over to St. Francis, and I said, could this actually be written in some foreign language? And the poor lady, you know, when she sees me coming, she opens the book, you know. So she says, now wait a minute, there's a young priest upstairs visiting us who just spent 7 years over in Rome, and maybe he can read Latin or Italian or whatever. He came down and, sure, this is, what's my father's name? Bill.
Yeah.
William is Glenn. How do you say it?
Glenn.
Glenn, okay.
Yeah, that's a tongue twister.
Yeah. That's, and then he pronounced, you know, read it all out, and he said, now this would be Maria Mercedes Souza. I said, Father, please, can you write me out another birth certificate in the United States? He said, sure. Typed it out, handed it to me. So I get a stack of stuff like that. I got my father's birth certificate, marriage certificate, his World War I discharge. I got a stack of papers this high. I walk in, I look around for the guy, and he's not there. Someone else said, could I help you? I said, yeah. I was told I needed this stuff so I could get my Social Security check. All we need is your Social Security number. But he said, I'll take pictures of all of this and put it in your file. So that's one time when the name kind of found me out for 2 solid weeks, you know, because I'm figuring the only reason I retired was the fact that I was going to rely on my Social Security, and I was leaving early. I was leaving at 62, so I was only going to get 80% of what I would normally. Plus my gas company retirement, where I worked for 36 years, and
not a true Cape Codder because I was born in Fall River. And they moved here, my folks moved me here when I was 6 weeks old. So I think I'm pretty well. I lived on Putnam Avenue for... Yeah, right. So,
George, I was told that even though I was born here, lived all my life here, if my parents didn't come over on the Mayflower, I wasn't a Cape Cod.
oh, yeah. You know, John Phillips, he changed his name too, just to get on the back. So his name was S-O-U-Z when he started. And then when he came to, it was in America, he changed it to USA. S-O-U-S-A. So that's a little bit of information there. Okay, now what else do you want to hear from us? I know went to school at grammar school where the post office is now. That's where the grammar school was. We had first and second grade, one room. I think it was Miss Smith I had. Third and fourth was Miss Handy. And fifth and sixth was Etta Crawford, who lived right next door to the post office, across the way. She was a principal. And then we had down the hallway, we had a nurse's station, in case anybody ever met her. We had a little playground there. I think we had a swings. And then I think wasn't there a... Yeah, and then there was a merry-go-round, I thought, yeah. And downstairs, which I can't find anybody that knows anything about it, there was a train that we used to, at recess, we used to go down there. Was a train. I got a picture of it here so people can see it. And it was, you'd go down in the basement, and I had some pictures taken with Ruthie Harlow and a few that I don't even remember anymore. Ruthie Harlow, I guess she's gone, but she was in a training picture with me, and there was a couple of them. I think it was one of the Patello boys. And,
Well, you're a good girl.
huh? Yeah, I am. You are, yeah. Okay, you are. 1921. I was 29, I was born. So I don't know if you want to...
That
When was the
school,
post office converted, or when was the school converted over to the post office?
well, that school now is John Lawrence.
No, that's Master Middle School.
Is it?
Yeah, Master Middle School is...
What did they do with it? They did turn it?
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
I have a question about the school on School Street. Do any of you remember when the second floor was put on the school?
Second one?
The second story of the school? When you went there, was there a second story on the school?
No.
No, there was a basement, you know, but the main...
There was a second story.
Oh, there could have been something there, I don't remember that.
See, I only attended 2 years there, both in the first grade. Well, I'll qualify that. I'm not that dumb, but there was a Miss Chase, and if there wasn't so many ladies present, I would say what I thought she was. And it seemed like every other week I'd get a little note, please send 10 cents in for this or for that. You know, my folks were poor. Who was it then? And Mother wrote a note back and she says, look, I can't give any more money. Well, after that, nothing went right for me. And I didn't pass. And the next time when I repeated, they'd ship her over to what we used to call the dumb school. But it was the ones that were dumb. Now it's the senior citizens.
Where was the dumb school?
Pardon?
Where was the dumb school?
Where the senior citizens building is now on
I
South
am.
Street.
Oh, okay,
On-
all right.
Yeah, South Street. So anyway, where was I? When you get over 39, like every...
Well, I know the school, they had behind there was a hollow, behind it, and only fourth graders, fourth, fifth, and sixth, you had to be in the fourth grade to go down there because it was kind of steep to go down there. And now it's wide, huh?
It's like a jungle down there.
Oh, yeah, it's a jungle now, sure.
We used to slide, because in those days there was snow. And I'll tell you another story later about snow. But we would get cardboard boxes, we would get pieces of board, anything, slide down. And no wonder we didn't get killed because there was still some trees there and everything. But there was also a red board fence that went all the way down to the street, to the house that your sister lives in. And I forget who the lady was who owned it at that time.
Fuller?
Yes, yes. And in the back, she had an orchard where it kind of sloped down. And the kids looked over there and saw all of these apples, all over these trees. So, it didn't take much because it was an old fence and there was boards butted right up together. But somebody thought the idea of just give it a couple of boards a jerk so that kid could kind of squeeze through and grab a bunch of apples, fill their pockets up, come back. So all day, every recess for 3 days, everybody was going down there except Jim Souza. He was chicken. So finally I decided, hey, if everybody else is doing it and gets away with it, I'm going to do it. Well, the principal at that time was named I'll get to it. But anyway, she caught me. And I hadn't even got an apple. I was just going through the fence. But the lady had called up and complained that the kids were swiping out her apples. And I got nailed. And I had a right, I will not steal apples. I don't know, maybe 100 times. But the funny part about it, did I hate that teacher along with the Mrs. Chase I had in first grade? But she ended up teaching history in the high school. I had my senior year, and she knew more history. Bertha Newcomb, there. She knew history. She didn't need a book. And American history. And I loved that woman then, but oh boy. So the next lady who came second year that I was going through, she wrote to my mother and said, I'm going to put Jim up into the second grade because he doesn't belong here. And mother said, no, leave him there. Let him get a good start. But he talked about the basement at this school. Well, when we were going to school, the basement is where you went to weaving. And
I didn't want to get personal.
in the boys' one, there was a slate. Of course, when you're this high seemed like a mile. But there was a pipe, half-inch pipe, going across the top with holes drilled in, and there was water running down this slate all the time. Then there was a trough down below. And I'm not going to tell you what the older boys did. But anyway, it was a great school. And you know something? That handsome gentleman over there is my oldest son. And he went to the first grade in that same school. Luckily, he didn't have Bertha Newcomb or Miss Chase. Go ahead, take over. My nose is dry. Any more iced tea?
You mentioned the school, my dad
Oh,
was custodian for the Cotuit school, for the Martin school, and Cotuit High School.
yeah.
And he had about 6 different coal-fired furnaces to take care of. And consequently, in the wintertime, very rarely got away on a weekend trip or anything
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
It was our Santa
Thank you
Claus.
very much.
Kids.
All the kids would go crazy over him. And Mr. Child would come up and says, I think I hear Santa Claus. And my dad up, thinking of the bill.
Oh, God.
I think I hear Santa Claus coming on. And my dad comes in and gives him all over the place.
Everybody had something.
He did that for about, I guess, 30 years. They took collections throughout the town, and everybody had children, and anyone who wanted to donate. And they got little, not expensive gifts for the kids, you know, we had enough. I was really young, I didn't know who he was. Somebody
He was the greatest man.
What was your father's name, Gordon?
Pardon?
What was your father's
His
name?
name was Henry, but they called him Harry.
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 Yeah.
And you know, in those days, we walked to school. We didn't have a bus pick us up every two steps. You know, the bus picks everybody, they stop here, then they go down there and stop there. But we walked from school. We walked through snow, everything. So it was...
Jim was talking about stealing apples a while ago. We used to go to the ball games there, where the likes of Stan Turner, Stanley Turner, and Ken Turner, Abe Turner, Roger Burlingame, Pete Pells, and Clarence Fish, they all played ball, you know. And we used to, well, it started School Street, go down, walk through all the backyards and back lockers, and then you get to the ball park. Well, one day, we used to do this, and Mr. Coleman had a fence along there. We would cut through behind documents that go down by Mary Ellen Woods. And he had a fence there, and he had an apple tree right there. Well, of course, everybody, kids go by, they'd swipe the apples, you know. But one time, we went to the ball game. I guess we got a ride there. I didn't go by there, but when the ball game was over, it was dark, you know, called dark, and we were walking back to Mr. Coleman and said, let's get some apples. So we climbed up on the fence, and Mr. Coleman had tarred the fence.
Does anybody know or remember what the town looked like in, you know, say the 30s and 40s? I mean, I know a lot of you are young and not, you wouldn't know it, but remember how the town was set up? It's, we had where our post office was.
I have here a building of the picture of the what was originally Sears General Store. You guys around. Pardon? Yes, but it's not the Sears Roebuck, no.
No.
Benjamin Sears.
They had Isaacson's here too at one time.
And I also have a shoehorn from Sears General Store. And my mother, for a while before I was born, she worked at the Cotuit Hotel, which was located up.
I remember when that burned down.
Well, I don't know. I think it burned down to the store. And I have a key here from the Cotuit Hotel, and it's written on here, it says office bathhouse, rather than office in the bathhouse. It says on it. And it says, I tried to make it out, it's made by someone on the block on Beekman Street. And you should return it, and it costs 2 cents to return.
What did your mother do at the Santua house?
Making beds, that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
When she was young, before she came to this country, she worked for a good-sized hotel in London, and she was a good cook, but she didn't go into cooking. And I know she could cook the show too. Yeah, she was a good cook.
In those days, they worked. The women used to go out, especially in the spring and early in summer, used to go clean houses.
Yeah.
I think they used to get like 50 cents an hour or something. They'd get them all ready for Kirkman Estate and all these places on Ocean Street. And, you know, that helped the budget, you know. Budget was very high, but that helped a lot.
Was there a hotel or some kind of resort?
The Pines,
Pines.
Pines Hotel, yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah.
Because I've heard it mentioned, was it a hotel?
You know, people used to come and stay there.
Uh-huh.
And then they had an ice cream place.
Yeah.
We all used to go there for ice cream cones.
You got an ice cream cone here, and you paid a dime for it, and just when you go down it, just to give down here, you
Yeah.
give it.
It was very generous. It was very generous.
Yeah, Calvin Crocker married into the family who owned the Pines. I think that's the way
The
it
Morse
worked.
family.
And they made, it was quite a you know, a summer hotel, very, very crude. In fact, the walls, as I remember, were just pine boards, tongue and groove. There was a door, and then they had a shutter door inside or outside, so you could open the inner door and still get some air through, because there was, of course, no air conditioning in those days. And we had a yard sale 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I sold, I guess I gave it away, one of the shuttered doors
It's at the Historical Society.
It is?
Yeah, number 7?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'm glad it ended up in a good place. You know, I thought somebody would make in on that.
Did any of you work locally? What were some of your first jobs around town?
I used to mow Kitty Meek's lawn for 25 cents an hour.
I used to mow the lawn next door. Used to be at Abdel Inn.
Yeah.
Remember it?
Yeah.
And then they hired me to go in the kitchen and wash dishes by hand, you know. So I no more than get the breakfast dishes done and there's a lunch dish. So I said, I quit. And then that was it. I couldn't handle that, you know. But my first job, I think, was house and garden in Ostago, which I was there for 3 years, and then I bought my own store in Chatham.
From the age of 2 until about 9, I lived with my mother on my grandfather's farm, 3.5 acres on Newtown Road. And everybody went to work during the day. Grandma stayed home and did the cooking, the washing, whatever, and a lot of the weeding and the picking of the vegetables and all. And of course, I was right behind her. I remember
years ago.
she used to, when the cherries were ripe, you know, the wild cherries, she'd shove me up into the tree, and I'd get up there and I'd shake the branches like crazy, and she'd spread sheets on the ground and catch all the cherries. And then she'd squeeze them all out, and she made I guess you'd call it brandy. She had that hidden. I never got to touch. I sampled my grandfather's great wine enough, but I never could get a hold of her brandy. And that was only when the women come over to knit or to sew. She'd bring it out and hand out thimblefuls. But a little while ago, Gordon we both talked about stealing apples. I got to tell you one about stealing watermelons. Not me. Our first automobile was a Model T, and in those days, none of the roads around here were paved, and so in the wintertime, you just put it up on blocks, you walked, everybody came to the door, peddlers came to the door, to sell you vegetables, moonshine, fish, meats, and if you didn't get anything that way, you could call Mr. Crocker at Cotuit, and Mr. Snow, Herbert Snow, would deliver it to you. But anyway, in 30, when did the first Model A or B come out? 29? Anyway, an uncle of mine got it. It was a roadster with a rumble seat. And boy, he was the cat's meow around here. Girls, whoop! And every night they cruise around. Well, they got this idea of stealing watermelons from Mr. Joe Ravello's watermelon patch. Now, that guy could grow, he had watermelons like this. And the kids used to steal it. So finally, he fenced the whole watermelon patch in and put a very vicious dog in there. And if you got anywhere near that fence, all you heard was growls and you saw teeth. So the boys, it was a hot night and they really wanted some watermelon. What are we going to do? Well, they all piled into the car. There was 5 of them, I think. 3 in the back seat, And they roamed around, they went all the way to Falmouth until they found a female dog in Higgins. Picked the dog up, brought him to it, put him over the fence, waited 5 minutes, and then went over the fence themselves, and they filled that car full of watermelons. Well, they ate all they could, they had a bunch of them left. What could they do? So finally somebody had the idea. The old one-room schoolhouse that was down next to what I still call Grange Hall on Main Street out in the Sandwood area. Right in the same yard was a one-room schoolhouse that my mother went to. And I'll tell you another story about that too. And it was one room, but it had what do you call it, bell tower. So they got all these watermelons and shoved them up into that bell tower. Well, when Mr. Joe Ravello came out the next morning and saw his watermelon patch all torn up, he called the police. And he already had a few names that he could tell the police of problem guys that had been around before. So they came after my Uncle Manny. And sure enough, they took out the rumble seats in the back and found 3 to 4 watermelon seeds in it. And that was evidence enough. So he had to pay $5 for the watermelons. And I don't know if he got the money from the other guys or not. But that's one way of beating a dog if you want to try. Going back to that same little one-room schoolhouse, like I mentioned before about Our Lady of Assumption Church, that was the church for the whole area. And in the wintertime, it was awfully hard to get over there, even in the Model T. There was no Route 28 in those days. 28 was built through here till about 30 or 31. So a bunch of the Catholic people in the down Main Street and on Newtown Road. Newtown Road was just about all Portuguese. They got together and they went to Father Killigrew, an Irish terror.
Yeah, he was pretty, people wanted
His
to
most one was getting ready. He raved about sin. But anyway, they went to him and said, look, we've got an abandoned schoolhouse down here, and we've asked the town fathers if we could use it for a church. And they said, sure, go ahead. So he said, well, they found it hard, and finally they persuaded him. So he came over, and the benches were still there, but they weren't desks like you see in most schools. They were just long benches that students sat on, and then a higher bench kind of slanting a little bit that they rode on. You had maybe, well, just like you have rows here, and then the teacher had a desk up front, and then in the back was a pot-bellied cast iron stove that used to get cherry red, and that would heat that whole place up. Well, the men had got there early, and they got a fire going, and all of us people walked in there, and the priest came in, and he looked around, and had mass here. Father, we need a crucifix. Got to have a crucifix behind the altar. I can use the desk for the altar. So, a Mrs. Souza lived in the house next to it. The house is still there, but I don't think it's Souza anymore. Do you know what it is?
She lived next to it,
Yeah.
2 doors away from
Yeah.
the school.
But anyway, She rushed home and she brought this beautiful crucifix. And one of the boys drove a nail in the wall and hung it up. And the first Mass, Catholic Mass, in the Cotuit area was there. And later on, of course, St. Jude's was built by Father, that followed Father Killigrew.
Yeah, what year was that? What year was that, the first Mass?
I don't remember that stuff.
30, 31 maybe?
Do you know where, the place we meet, you know where the Epic Grotto is? There was a schoolhouse in the middle, right next to it.
Excuse me, the church, there was a church across the street where Hilda Alameda's house is.
Yeah.
She's recently passed away. It's a little ranch house. That was a congregational church. The Catholics never
No,
were in there.
No.
Okay. Do you remember that church?
No.
You don't?
I vaguely remember, but you know,
You know, you didn't go too far
Yeah.
in those days. I did go just a few houses up from there was an old lady, and this, I ever came home one day, this is Jim, because he used to mow lawns around. I used to chase my grandmother to pull weeds, but because I was 15, 16 years younger than my other man. He came home, said, Jim, put your coat on. I got something to show you. I jumped in the Model A or Model D, I forget, and we go down Main Street to this lady's house, and she's got this gadget with earphones. You know, she puts it on my head, and she pulls around with some knobs or something, and all of a sudden I can hear music. And I said, what is this? She said, this is a radio. But only one person can hear it at a time because you have to have the earphones on. So, and that was, I guess today kids make crystal sets, and that's what that was, the first radio. So a couple of weeks later, Fanny was over there mowing the lawn again. She said, bring your nephew over again. I got something I really want to show. So what she had done, she had a fishbowl, glass fishbowl, about this big around, and it had an opening in the top like this. She put the earphones in the fishbowl, turned up the volume, and we all stood around the table like this. And all of us could hear the music. You know, hey, this is really something, you know? Look what they got today in one lifetime. I mean, hey, it scares me. What are my grandchildren going to?
it's Joe. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm reminded of one year, my dad was Santa Claus for, it had to be 25 years or so. And one year they had a scarlet fever spread through the town, and of course they couldn't have any public gatherings. So the Cotuit grocery offered their truck to deliver the gifts around in Cotuit and San Antonio. Well, of course, you said there were a lot of Portuguese in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And then a lot of Portuguese raised grapes. And a lot of Portuguese
Made wine.
made wine.
And they always gave you a drink of wine if you came to their house. So you ended up
He
drunk.
couldn't get wine to do the gift to the Catholic. He couldn't get out of the house without a glass of wine. Consequently, when he got home, he was feeling the pain.
Is Joan getting Smith in here? She probably didn't attend. Well, I just want to let her know that when I was a kid, you know where Putnam Avenue is? That's where I lived, on Putnam Avenue. There was not a house. There was the Montero, myself, the Monteros, and I think it was Margaret's Landis or something. And there was nothing else. Huh? Yeah, that's right, so that's in Hope now. But there was no houses or anything, and Joan Bennett Smith came with a horse and sleigh. It took my brother and I for a sleigh ride up Putnam Avenue. Believe it or not, it was that, you know, it was hardly anybody out there, but we had a great time with her.
When was Putnam Avenue built?
Well, I was there in 29, so it was there
It was
then.
there in 29? Oh,
It
okay.
was there then, I don't know, you know, how early the house.
Well, when I was a kid living on School Street, the buses which went from Hyannis to Falmouth went by way of School Street. They came
few years later, well, I know one of my boys said, gee, here I got a lotto, and Barry next door got a basketball. You know, what's going on here? I said, well, I don't know, politics. But on this stage, I have seen medicine men, and boy, they had this medicine, and the guy would come out and he'd try to lift this weight, going, oh, no way. And then he'd look, and he'd take that thing like that. And everybody'd be out there shoving the butts. And minstrel shows, of course, that's a no-no today, but, my first movie in this hall, I sat, because there were seats here, you know, bolted down, just like in a theater, only they were wooden. And the seats came up so you could walk through. And I sat in the front row, up the third from the end, and they had the screen up there, because it was black and white, and kind of, well, it wasn't very clear. And all I can remember is a bunch of buses going this way, and a bunch of buses going this way. And I said, who are those people? So someone said, well, the guys in the white hats are the good guys, and the guys in the black hats are the bad guys. And, but they'd be shooting at each other and all. But hey, it was a moving picture, you know. It was something. And the radio was another thing too, because I was the one that used to have to crank the Victrola at home, you know, with his voice, Victor. Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I was wondering when my dad gave me a horn and said, well, you know, check this out, the guy mowing the lawn. Well, there was a little building next to the church. You see, there was a gift store, and there was the place where my car had for insurance. The kids lived there. And then there was the plumbing shop. There was Atlanta's plumbing shop. And then there was this little building between the plumbing shop and the church. And there was an elderly lady in there, an old, like Miss Fian, her name was. And I went to her door and knocked on her door. You know, would you like to mow your lawn? I'd like to mow your, you know, give me money. No, I don't want anybody mowing my lawn. I'll take care of it. Well, the next day I saw her out with a pair of shoes. So help me. You want to pay any money there for a lawnmower?
How'd the town get all that property that's now the park? That was obviously private property for a time.
At one time, it was just an open sand lot. And Wallace Carter bought it, and he turned it over to the town.
What was this?
They used to have an AMP, they had an AMP there.
Yeah.
They had an AMP in a barber shop, and they had a post office. Barber shop takes all day to get your hair cut.
But
No offense to anybody.
Charlie Fred.
He was like this.
Yeah.
And he was beautiful.
I think I was the only
Andy
kid.
Barber was also.
Yeah, well, I was years later.
I was sitting
You were a
there.
young boy.
I was sitting there waiting for a haircut.
You had to have a
And
lot of
Andy
time.
Barber decided he wanted to go for lunch, so he left me stranded there. He said, I'm going to lunch, I'll be back in an hour.
You were saying, if you went to man in the Bobby, you would have plenty of time in your hands.
Well, Charlie Fred, you know, you could get right in the chair, but you still were there now. Because he would be shaking like this, and I think I was the only boy in Cotuit and Santuit that didn't get a near snip. Because that's all the mothers would have to drag the kids in. They'd be screaming.
Yeah, there was a post office and the AMP, and then I think Long took it over after a while, didn't he?
Yeah. And there was, of course, there was
Burgess store across the street. With the,
You used to sell, Gibbs used to sell fireworks at one store, and Burgess Higgins sold fireworks in the other store. And they'd buy them, and they'd stand here and stand over there, and they'd fire those rockets back at the places.
yeah, cherry bombs and, you know, all those firecrackers. Oh, really something.
There used to be a meeting house above this building that I sat to think on. I think it was a men's club. I never was up there, but I don't know what they did. I probably played.
Like that,
Oh,
here?
yeah.
door, the Scudder's garage. It's been torn down since. And, well, that was a scary house. I was, like I say, I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. So, my Aunt Rose says, "Now, Jim, I don't want you down south." Well, of course, that's like telling me, go. So the minute she went to work, I headed for the south. I went down the steps, and it was nice. The house was built on a bank, and there was a bunch of windows facing the driveway, and there was a bench in front of it, so I was playing around with some real old tools and everything. And there was a beam going across, floating beam, and there was a rope that had been tied over this beam, and it cut off quite raggedly because it was all frayed. It's a funny place for a piece of rope. So then I opened up a door, and then I could understand why Aunt Rose didn't want me down there, because there was a cistern there. I don't know how deep. They used to catch all the rainwater from the gutters down there, and they used that for wash water because that was easier than hand pumping in those days. Cotuit Water Department didn't go until 1936. So I closed that door very quick. I opened another door. It was a closet, and there's a gravestone. Up the stairs I went. But that rope intrigued me, and I don't know why. So I kept asking around, and I don't know, someone finally told me that Captain Souza, who used to own that house, don't ask me names, and this could all be a lie. But boy, it sounded awful good to me, 7 years old. He said he hung himself down, and they just cut him off instead of untying him. And that was supposed to be, I said, well, that is the gravestone? They said, well, they started out with it. Some of the people in the church thought it wouldn't be appropriate to give him a headstone, seeing as he committed suicide. Can anyone collaborate that story? Is anyone here over 77? No one's going to admit to it anyway.
I was reading a note, my brother, who lives in North Attleboro, wrote some things about Cotuit for his veterans organization. And I have a note here. It says Freedom Hall was built in the 1800s, and in his younger years, he remembers being a movie house with silent movies. And the silent movies were accompanied by Mrs. Nellie Smalley. Mrs. Nellie Smalley playing on the piano. And it was also used for other occasions, like Santa Claus and so forth. Mr. Reggie Bowles was Santa Claus before my dad. He was a pretty good local artist.
I think he was.
He was a Santa Claus to me. We used to pick Mayflowers and we used to head right for the Bowles house. They only gave us 50, 75 cents for 2 bouquets. They had enough money in those days to do it. We were pleased, and we'd go out to the grocery store and spend it all. And the Cotuit grocery also, Milton Crocker, used to have grab bags for a penny, and this kid used to fly. Then you'd get one, and then a penny, and then inside it would say you earned another one. You pick another one, and it was a lot of fun. He was a good man.
He was going to give store and go up to the painting counter, put our noses up against the glass. I want one of those. And Mr. Lundquist, he was so patient.
Yep.
He'd wait for you. I don't want one of those. How much are those over there? Those are 2 for a penny.
2 for a penny. I used to get 7 for a penny.
Yeah, you got some good bargain.
And there's another one. Had a name, but I can't. It's a no-no today. about this big, made of wax. And it was hollow inside, it had root beer inside.
Yeah.
And, you know, you drank the warm root beer, but then you could chew the wax all day long.
Mr. Crocker had a pump for kerosene. A lot of people use kerosene stoves in the old days, you know, the things that are outlawed today. We used to go up to them with a little cart and go maybe a gallon jug of kerosene.
You heard a store work when you used to go around the village in the truck taking orders. And you always knew when you'd been in the house and you smelled a cigar.
Yeah.
They would know the guys.
What were some of the main occupations of the people that lived here?
Gardening,
Yeah.
well, actually, even in those days, see, this is before taxes, so along the shore here, and then Arsenal, pianos, Oyster Harbour wasn't built then, but there were beautiful, big estates all along CU Avenue and Piano. My grandfather was, and Eel River Road, two of my uncles worked for a George Seacard, who was a very wealthy man, and had Salmaris. The house is still there, but he owned acreage across the street too. He had a huge rock garden. In fact, he found a rock in northern New York that was, I would say, 15 feet long and maybe 8 feet wide by 8 feet deep, I guess. It was kind of shaped like this, and he wanted it in the middle of his rock garden standing up. They broke 3 trucks getting it to New York here. But, a man named Ed Thomas was the caretaker there. He lived in Orange, New Jersey, so he could go down there in the winter. My uncle was in charge. But my grandfather owned I wish he did. Next door was a smaller estate called, owned by 2 sisters, and their names was Carlette, I believe. And my father was a caretaker of that estate. Yeah, Eel River Road.
Eel River Road, yeah, Mary Collette.
And the yellow house this side of the coop belonged to the Shreves from Shreve Crumpet Lowell.
Yeah.
And my mother, at one time, my mother, my Aunt Margaret, my Aunt Rose, and my Aunt Sophie. No, Sophie, I got another story to tell you. You see, and Margaret Rose, all worked for the Shreves all summer long. One was a cook, one was a laundress, the others were parlor maids, all of this cleaning. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, when they left in the fall, the ice boxes, no refrigerators, ice boxes were emptied out, and we took all that home. And the women would go through all their clothes, and my aunts just got fight over their dresses and stuff. And then Mother would spend half the winter taking men's pants and making a pants and a pair of shorts made off. Because in those days, we only wore knickers. I was 6.5 years old before I had a long pair of pants. So you worked for the summer people. The women would then, cranberry season, go over to West Barnstable and they'd screen cranberries. They put all the cranberries in. You know, in the first 3 days they'd all get sick because they'd see this stuff going by all the time. And they would earn a little extra money to help out. And of course, everybody charged all winter long to a grocery store. The coop. And then it took them all summer to pay up. And Mr. Crocker never refused anything. And a lot of bills, I know, he just go around, put away. And Harry was just as good after that. But anyway, my Aunt Sophie wasn't working for the Shreves because right about one or two houses up from what is now the library, was a telephone office, central, as they call it. And my aunt was one of the telephone operators. So I walked out and see her, and, you know, this light would light up, and she'd take a plug, and she'd put it in here, and then she'd put another plug down here, and she'd have these earphones on. She said, okay, she'd put another plug up here, and then she'd turn a crank. So each street was a party. You were on a party line. So I think our rate was 4. So if it was the Souza residence, she would turn the crank 4 times. If it was the Enos or the Fraser or the whatever, they were from 1 to maybe 8 in those days. I think that's about all the houses were on there. But you know, you get the message, and you say, okay, bye, you hang up, then you quickly took the receiver off, and you could hear all the other receivers being hung up. Everybody listened on everybody.
No confidentiality then.
And boy, as the first person who got a private line.
You said something newsworthy then, and everybody knew about it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Couldn't do much in those days.
Yes,
I thought I saw a picture of this corner down here with a traffic light. Is there a traffic light there?
yes,
Yeah.
there actually was, believe it or not.
On the Putnam Avenue.
But one of my great joys,
Huge concrete mound it was there.
yeah,
Yeah, right in the middle of Putnam, well, all the way to Putnam Avenue, right in the middle.
one of my great joys in the summertime, again, we had the Model T Ford. My uncle would take it off the jacks, pump up the tires, grind the valves. You know, that car, it came with a screwdriver. No, a pair of pliers, and one handle of the screwdriver, of the pliers was sharpened down into a screwdriver. So you could, and a adjustable wrench, which we used to call a monkey wrench. And you could take the whole doggone car apart and grind the valves and do all these things. We'd pile in, take all the curtains off, and it had a canvas roof. And Grandma would cook up, I mean, she made a picnic lunch, you know. It was fried chicken and, I'll get hungry if I keep up. We would either go to Papaneset Beach. Now, at that time, Papaneset Beach was pine trees. There wasn't a house out there. And the beach was from here to the center of town. And the water was nice and clear. We'd all go swimming and get some sun, and then if the sun got too hot, we just moved up under the pine trees. And these were native pines. I mean, they went up 60 feet out there. Of course, maybe only 30, but to a child. And the men would be out digging clams, quahogs, catching blue claw crabs. So we would go with a picnic and we'd bring back a feast. If we didn't go there, on Sunday nights, we would head for the Cape Cod Canal. And we'd get there just about dusk. And we'd have our picnic lunch on the banks of the canal. The canal was half to 2/3 the width that it is now. And we would lay there, and then pretty soon, here it comes, and the New York boat would stand coming up the canal. And when it got to, well, each bridge, the bridges then were drawbridges. So that's how narrow the canal was. They went this way. The captain would blow his whistle, and the crew would flash the searchlights all along, and we'd all cheer, and we could hear the music on the ship, and they'd be people dancing, and you know, better than going to the Fenway Park to a ball game. You know, to us, simple things were wonderful because you didn't know anything else.
These clam bakers that they used to put on down at the White Tower, which I think was something like $2.50. That was pretty expensive.
Yeah.
No, the clam bake cost you $25, $30, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh,
All of that. And you had everyone, each one got a lobster. They got an ear of corn, they got a piece of chicken, they got a hot dog, they got sweet potatoes, white potatoes, you name it. It was quite a.
you forgot one thing.
Pardon?
You forgot one thing.
What was it?
Leave stuff.
Well, in those days, they didn't have it.
Oh, yes, they did.
They did have it.
5.5 years old, my first pair of long pants. This is in front of,
Question?
Can you
my
talk
grand-
about Cotuit and the hurricane of '38? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, pretty bad.
It was just a big blow.
It was bad.
It hit Woods Hole. But, you know, that was the first storm that was called a hurricane. Up to that time, we used to call them line storms. It did do a lot of damage, but actually,
44 was
the
worse.
44, I was overseas then in the Pacific, so I wasn't here then, but I couldn't believe Wiano Avenue or Seaview Avenue. You couldn't see any of those houses, those big estates in there before because of the trees, and they were all wiped right out. And yeah, but yeah.
How long did you lose power, or did you lose power in '44?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We
well,
were away. I was away then. My father and mother were working at defense in Mansfield. We were going to school up there, and we came down just for the weekend to see what was going on.
I was living in
I don't
Arnold.
remember the
The
power.
38 hurricane, we never got any warning about that.
No.
We had, one of our places, we had 4 beautiful linden trees. And they got the first one and the third one. And then the 44 hurricane, I was down in Key West, Florida, Navy. My dad said he got the other 2 and then the 44 hurricane. They were beautiful linden trees.
Of course, in those days, you know, people didn't build houses right on the water.
Didn't
They,
want to go part of it.
They knew what would happen, and the line storms would clear them out. There were fishing shanties, there were little boat houses and stuff, and they'd get blown down, and owners would go back and find all the boards and put it back up again. And from the Wiano Club in Wiano, all the way to the Wiano Cut was a boardwalk. It was 2x8 planks, I think maybe 4 wide. And that would get torn up about every February. And all of the men around would be begging for Stone to tear that boardwalk up because they would get 2 weeks' work to get it all back together. And that was some more money you know, to help out with the groceries. Of course, in those days, if you didn't have a cow, a quart of milk was 8 cents. The large boxes of cornflakes, and I don't know if there was many other kind of cereals in those days, was 8 cents.
We used to kill pigs too. We used to have pigs and chickens, roosters, and we used to have a pig and feed it, and they used to kill it. And we had a pig that became a pet of my father's and all of us, and he couldn't do anything with it, and he had somebody do it, you know, kill it. And we were crying. My mother and 2 of us are crying. The poor pig is squealing and So I don't like meat anyhow. So that's why I think that was the problem right there.
Well, we raised hogs. In fact, I was 9 years old before I realized that a football wasn't the bladder of a hog, because that's what I played with. You know, as my uncle was trimming the 2 halves down, and
Gross.
yeah,
It was gross.
the guts and stuff was rolling out. take out the bladder, and I would wash it all out and get a bicycle pump and pump it up and tie it, and we'd play football.
Was there much recreational use of the waterways?
Nobody could afford a boat.
You didn't have time. You know, up until World War II, if you had a job, you worked 6 days a week. And Sunday you went to church. And, you know, some people were very, very religious. I couldn't even read the funny sheets on Sunday. That was frivolous. I mean, no. You think of God. Luckily, I still do.
We wanted quahogs or clams or anything like that.
45 minutes.
You went down to the shore and you got them. There were scabs of them.
45 minutes, we'd go down to the narrows. We'd get a hod, and there was no limit in those days. You didn't have to.
You have to have a license.
A hod of clams, a hod of quahogs, a hod of oysters. Actually, between East Bay and Cotuit Bay and the Narrows and most of North Bay, from 20 feet out was all oyster beds. And I mean, if you did any sailing in those days, you had to weave in and out of these pine trees that were driven into the sand, dividing one person's oyster bed from another. And I mean, there was battles over 1 inch. And of course, those oysters, and most of them were raised in Austria, but they were all Cotuit oysters, and they were shipped all over the world.
We used to go to Jolly Hollow meat market down there. Mr. Holly, got any meat scraps? Yeah, you can get a little bit, get a meat scrap, and you get a fish net. You all get tricked up to the bridge up here over Shoestring Bay. And there were 2 or 3 with string with meat, a little weight on them to bring it down. And lower the crab over, something be down on the side over the net. Lower the crab over the net.
Look like crabs are this big.
Oh, there used to be plenty of them. And you get them home, and my mother went to cook them. She get the water boiling, you know, and drop them in there. It was a sad sight, but they were good. They didn't swim very long.
Crabbing Bridge is on the way to that street. Yeah, the crabbing bridge have long necks to get the crabs right out of the bridge, off the bridge there, big long handles on them.
And you know, I was invited by a Filipino couple in well, it was in Luzon to lunch one day because I met the husband was working as a carpenter in our campsite. And I got talking to him, and he seemed like a pretty nice guy. He said he had a lot of children to feed and all. So I felt sorry for him. And I went to the mess sergeant, and I got a couple of big cans of salmon. And I took it to his house. Well, I gave it to him. That's what it was. He said, well, you're good to me. Come to my house for lunch tomorrow. So I went, and it was blue quad crabs, just like the ones here. And I was amazed. Hey, but you know, no crackers. So I'm sitting there looking at it. So finally, the mother laughs, and she says something in Filipino to a little girl about this big. She came over. She took the crab, and where the mouth would be, she just pulled it apart like that, set that had a plate this big full of crab meat. And I'm saying, how did she do that? You know? And I tried it, I can't do it. And this little girl was, and boy, they were crabs and dried fish, something like pogey, little flat fish around. I would call them a pogey. They catch them in nets and dry them. While they're drying, you don't walk by there. You know? You get up to the window.
Excuse me.
Bob,
I was just going to ask if anyone had any more questions. We could go on all night.
I'm only halfway through my notes.
we had a carpenter, Hamlin and Fish used to be the big carpenter people in town. My father worked for them. And you know, there was no such thing as work in the winter. It was pretty rough, you know, you got it, but a lot of the very faithful people, Mrs. Elmy, Charles Elmy, and a few other people, they got inside work for the children to do. Abbott Howe and my father worked for Hamlin and Fish, plus I guess others I don't know. But they found like they wanted to remodel their kitchen, or they wanted to do this or do that, and that kept them busy. Because, you know, they couldn't get on the roof in the winter and all that stuff, you know. Work was scarce. So he was one of the best. He could do anything from soup to nuts.
Did anybody cut ice? Did anybody cut ice?
Ice?
Over in hospital, Jesse Murray.
Down in Lewis Pond down there.
What's that?
They used to cut ice down in Lewis Pond, with a big ice house in the end.
And Eagle Pond.
There's lots of sawdust, you know, they cut it, you know.
Ice this thick?
We had a
We don't have
Shoot out
those
the
like that
long,
anymore.
shoot, put it in there, stack it, put sawdust over it, put some more in.
We had,
They lived it for a while.
we had fish delivered from Provincetown. The fish man used to come around and have all fresh fish. We used to get squid, all that kind of stuff. And most people had a lot of what they call a Cape Cod cellar, which we had at our house. And you could put milk down there and vegetables and stuff, and it would never spoil. It never was cool enough to withstand all that, you know, the milk. We had an ice box, but and before that, really tough times.
Yes.
Back to the occupations again. Was there no fishing then as an occupation? Or
Well,
when did that die
there
out?
was. I can remember fishing boats coming up to our dock. And you could buy, but they were, we used to buy pedo
Yeah.
from it, because Grandma used to make the greatest chowder. But a lot of, before my time, a lot of people went out and waited to see. I mean, like even my house was built by a sea captain, and I know many others were. And another thing about Cotuit, you know, there was how many stores all over that some woman might just have threads and needles and sewing things and like that. And I know that they were.
My uncle used to have a store next to your house.
Yes, yeah. But I've got one more story about snow, because we don't have snow like we did in the old days now. And I know that things are warming up and all, but they still get a lot of snow north of us. And I have this crazy theory that the reason we don't have more snow is every time they widen the Cape Cod Canal, that acts as a weather trap. And how many times have you left here on a nice sunshiny day and got across the bridge, maybe halfway to Plymouth? In those days, you had to go through Plymouth. If you could get through the Plymouth Hills in 1 hour from here, you were doing good time. But anyway, and the same thing goes the other way. But one snowstorm, and I was still living on Newtown Road, the snowdrifts were so high that Mr. Herbert Snow and his little Model A or whatever delivery truck, or even the town plows and stuff couldn't get through. We couldn't get out of our doors because the snow was piled so high that it held the storm doors. Oh, see, the inside door opens in, but the storm door opens out. You couldn't open it out because you had a ton of snow on the inside. So my grandfather went from window to window to window to window and found that the pantry window was in between two snowdrifts. So he took a shovel and threw it out the window and took me and slid me out the window. And I dug a path around and opened up the door. You know, that was quite a thing because in those days we still had a two-hole around back. And, well, not so. But anyway, all the men on the streets got their shovels, and kids too. I was too young, I didn't have to do it. But it took them a day and a half to shovel from about where the last house was Emil Rogers. That's about opposite where the road going down to Lovell's Pond is. And from there out to what is now 28, took them a day and a half to shovel the snow so we could get food delivered to us. And people say, oh, the good old days.
I still love them. I still like the old days.
Well, you
Life
didn't
was
have
much more simple.
you didn't have the wash tub in the kitchen.
Oh, I know that.
And I was the youngest, so I get in there first on a Saturday. You took a bath once a week on Saturday. You changed your clothes once a week.
You went off and left your house unlocked, or with the hand or something. You didn't have to worry about anybody. Somebody's had to bring a pie in and throw it on the counter. You can't help me.
We only had a cook stove with those old cast iron cook stoves. And the best thing that ever happened was when Norman Williams came in and installed silent glow oil burners. I didn't have to chop kindling anymore. But anyway, on Sunday, there was a palace stove in the living room. We'd opened the living room up, so we had two rooms with heater. But I was upstairs in a room, and of course I was a little tight, and I had a little bed to one side, my mother had another bed over there. And I used to scratch my name on the frost, on the inside walls of my, of course, Jack Frost painted the windows. Beautiful designs, but I was doing with a fingernail. That's, you know, the chamber bugs? They were green.
We lived through it.
Thank you.
Thank you for not asking me any gardening questions. But I didn't tell you a gardening story. What goes around comes around. Right now, after making my wife for 3 years, she's finally saving all her scraps and everything, and I'm making compost going out of style. But when I think back, George spoke about having pigs. We had hogs too. We had a great big pen, half the size of this room, and the men would go down to the shore and get seaweed and dump it in there. And all the squirrels went in there, and all the garbage went in there. And as the men are dumping the seaweed from the truck, my grandmother's there with an apron like this, and she's picking the biggest of the scallops that are in the seaweed. I mean, like this. And they'd wash it. There were so many things, you know, that they would go to, and the pigs loved them. You could hear crunch, crunch, crunch. They'd eat shell and all. So we had compost for our garden, because in those days you could buy 587 fertilizer and nitrate of sodium. That was the fertilizer we had. Thank you.
I hope you'll have us back again, because I think there's a lot we've missed. There's a lot more stories, but I think there's a lot that we've.
I'd like to see a lot of young people here tonight, and I want to tell them, you know, I'm not old. agent